Rappin' with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
I'm gonna take a broader shot.
Hey, what's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin' with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. So today, this is a real pleasure. I welcome Vincent Chalias to the show. Vincent is in Bali, Indonesia, and it's 7 a.m. Friday morning. So happy Friday there to you, Vincent. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
So I see
Hi guys.
See we have a whole bunch of people tuning in here. So for those of you that don't know Vincent, and he is really another icon in this hobby, this industry, whatever you want to say. But he's a marine biologist who is really a coral farming pioneer. He's also a diver and a passionate underwater photographer, helping to document corals and contributing photos and articles to a number of publications in Europe and the United States. He set up the first Indonesian coral mariculture farms at the beginning of the century and spent over 20 years in Indonesia running them. These days, Vincent is more focused, though, on reef restoration. So before we start chatting with Vincent, I do want to thank the sponsors for the show, both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. I really appreciate these companies supporting the show, and I appreciate all you folks that have been tuning in. Please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, whatever, so we can get more people into this stream. As always, I encourage you folks to ask a lot of questions and make some comments in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. And so, Vincent, man, over 20 years ago, you helped Bali Aquarium become the first in situ or ocean farm, licensed coral farm in Indonesia. And earlier this year, Bali Aquarium became the first ex situ, hopefully I'm pronouncing that stuff correctly, or inland licensed coral farm in Indonesia to obtain export quota for these corals. Can you kind of just talk about the steps and the hurdles that you had to overcome to set up the Bali Aquarium and you know, that setting up that first ocean farm over 20 years ago? Can you kind of give us a little bit of background and the history, what that's all that was all about?
Yeah, it's the problem when you start a new activity like that is that there is no administration, there is no legal paper, you know, so you have to build all the administrative paperwork as you go. So you have a great idea, you see it's functioning and everything, but until you get all the licenses and all the site permits so you can export your produce, it takes a while, and it was quite a challenge 20 years ago because there was no definition in CITES, for example, of what farm coral was. So we had to lobby the CITES so they properly define what was the difference between wild collected corals, farm corals, range corals, etc., etc. So there is a difference between if you are completely ex situ. It's a special code. I forgot what is the code, you know, on the CITES permit. If you are ranching, that means that you are taking, you know, fragments from wild colonies and then you put them on base, you let them grow, and then you ship them. That's considered ranching. And farming is you need to produce broodstock colony first, which you take fragments from, and then you plant them on base, and then you can export them, you know. So there was all this process of defining the activity properly. And then after, locally, we had to do all the local regulations to actually regulate that business. So there was plenty of regulation, you know. So for Acropora, for example, it's a math things, you know. So if you have one mother colony, every 4 to 6 months you can take 10 frags from that mother colony, and 4 to 6 months later you can export those frags. So that's the way it works. And then 10% of these frags is considered as mortality, and 10% is supposed to go back to the environment and be replanted on the reef. So yeah, it's just math. So we had to create all this and negotiate all this with the government, find a way to be audited and to be regulated properly, you know. So that was a challenge. For the ex situ farm, I think it took us 4 years to get a license. we built the system, we run a system, we invited the government, we told them it was possible to farm coral on land. They didn't believe us. They came and they audited multiple times, sent the scientific authorities, sent the management authorities, sent many people from the fisheries and the forestry department. And it took, the whole process took 4 years. So it's a lot of investment. And now that all the regulation is set, everybody's jumping in.
So was the inland operation, that was somewhat recent, correct?
Yeah. We set up the first system 4 years ago, but we just got the license like 3-4 months ago. So it's a long process.
What kind of volume are you guys dealing with at this point in time in terms of both the ocean farms and the inland farms?
I would need to check the exact numbers, but I think for the in-situ farm, the ocean farms, we are 40 to 50,000 pieces per year quota. And at the moment for the ex-situ farms, the inland farm, I think we are 5,000, I think.
And
I would need to check that again. I forgot that.
And
we are expanding. We are doubling our system. We just had one more layer in the whole farm. So we doubled the whole system.
So how has that been trending over the years in terms of just the coral exporting business? Has it been you mentioned that you're expanding the system, so I'm assuming that's for the inland facility?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So obviously the demand is going up, and your guys are you're actually able to farm more corals on the inland. But what about the ocean farm?
Okay, so I mean, the thing is, you need to produce the right products. That's the challenge, because it takes time. So you need to produce broodstock first, and then 6 months or 1 year or 2 years later, then you can have product you can sell. So it takes a lot of development. So at the moment, we're not really expanding the ocean farms. We're just modifying the ocean farms, so we different products. That's the main target. The ocean farm and the inland farm don't produce the same product. There is a lot of products that are very difficult to produce in ocean farms. First of all, in ocean farm, you need to cut the corals to a minimum size. If you cut too small, they still are in competition with algae, sponges, predation from fish, etc., etc. So it's like, as soon as you cut, for example, a euphilia underwater, you have all the butterfly fish that are coming, to eat the stress tissue, So for some, it's easier to do it, outside water than to do it in the water. So it's a different product. So we focus on things that you can sell that are very difficult to get broodstock. So you have broodstock. So inland, you can cut in very small size, and out of a 10 centimeter or 3-inch piece, you can get 20 frags. If you do this in the ocean, out of a 3-inch piece, you're gonna get 3-4 frags. So the ratio is different, and the market has changed also. 20 years ago, nobody wanted farm corals because they say, oh, it's too small. We prefer wild corals. It took markets like Japan it took a decenny, to send some corals into Japan, because they think, if you mariculture corals is things that are produced in thousands of exemplars.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the same corals 10,000 times, and they don't want that, because they prefer the wild collected corals, which is unique. So yeah, it's the market has changed a lot within 20 years. It's completely different world now, and the inland farms are just a complementary of the ocean farms. They just work together. We don't produce the same thing inland and ocean in the ocean.
So Chris Meckley from ACI Aquaculture is in the house. Chris says, I remember seeing the first system in 2018 when I visited.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so it's 5 years actually.
Yep.
That we start building it.
The inland farm. Yep. So what's Vincent? We had a chat before we actually went on the live stream a couple of days ago, and we talked a little bit, and I was asking some questions. I want to repeat a couple of those questions when I was talking to you about it. But one of the questions I had was, global warming and bleaching events. So when I had Dr. Dean Miller on from the Living Coral Biobank from Australia, we had a long conversation, and obviously they started this coral biobank because of these bleaching events on the Great Barrier Reef. What's going on in Indo? Are you guys seeing some bleaching happening? Is that impacting the operations?
Okay, so every reef in the world has different issues. They all have issues, but it's always different issues. We are impacted by bleaching in Indonesia, but not as seriously as on the Great Barrier Reef, first of all. But we have different issues that they don't have there, that we have here. Our main issue here is pollution. So basically, the Great Barrier Reef, it's offshore. It's 100 miles offshore the reef. So it gets polluted. They have a huge problem with sugarcane plantation fertilizer runoff in the ocean, but they don't have direct sewage system pollution because they don't have a huge population on the coast of Queensland. What we have here, the main problem we have here is big developments on the coast, just next by those reefs. So a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus being released in the water. The same problem as you have in Florida, basically, and a lot of human waste, pollution, E. coli and everything. So we get disease, we get Drupella snail, we get chronothorn starfish, but we don't get so much bleaching. We had some serious bleaching here in 98 and 2016. This is where. So we lost a couple farms. Like in 2016, we lost 2 farms completely, 100%, everything lost.
Wow.
So it's a big problem for us, but we know now how to deal with it. We just put the farms deeper. But yeah, we learned over the years, over 20 years, we learned to work deeper. That's basically what happened.
How do you actually do that in terms of moving deeper? Can you take a pre-existing farm and just kind of put that grow operation deeper, tow it to deeper waters?
Yes, we just move the racks one by one. So we wait that there is almost nothing left on the rack, and then we change the rack. We put a new rack deeper, and we kind of move only the fragments and the mother colony deeper, and then get rid of the old rack. That's usually the way we do it. So the racks have a life expectancy of 4 or 5 years anyway, So every 4 or 5 years, you still have to change all the racks. So when we have to change the racks, we just put them deeper.
Well, are you concerned about the light intensity, losing light intensity by going deeper? I mean, I guess obviously you have a limit in terms of how deep you can go.
Yeah. So for the very shallow farms, first of all, the way the market is going is we need to produce more and more LPS. So we need to work deeper a little bit anyway.
Gotcha.
Because what we need to produce now is different from what we used to produce 20 years ago, sorry. So, of course, for millies and tenuis, we still shallow worms, but we select very carefully where they're not in a kind of a hot water stream. So we select places that have a little bit more flow, and that's not going to be affected so much with warm water. So we don't really farm, like Millepora especially is one problematic coral because it needs to be in very shallow water. This is where it's going to grow nice. This is where it's going to take this beautiful shape. And it needs to be in the phytoplankton soup that is at the surface, in the first 50 centimeters of water. This is where it loves to be, it loves to be feeding. So it's a problem. We used to farm them in a sheltered turbid base, and now we farm them in places where there is a little bit more flow, so there is not so much risk of bleaching. Bali, we're very lucky in Bali because we have it's a small island, and the north coast and the south coast is completely different habitats, completely different environment. So in the south we get some upwelling, some cooler water than in the north. So we just need to move the farms away from the very warm water we get in the north.
What do you think the future holds for coral farming in Indo? You know, like in 5 years, what do you think this thing is going to be at? Is that kind of too hard to predict at this point in time?
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated because we have a lot of issues right now in Indonesia. So the main issue is to try to understand what's going to happen once they shut down the wild collection. So the plan is to shut down the wild collection in 2024. They had a plan to shut it down 2 years ago. You know, it didn't happen. So because they say because of pandemic and economic situation, you know, they need few more years to start farming corals, so the government gives them a few years more. The plan now is 2024. They say they're going to shut it down. We'll see what's going to happen. But yeah, the problem is right now is the wild collection is basically supplying raw materials, you know, to the US. So we have a lot of farms in the US and in Europe producing corals. And yeah, they just import wild corals from Indonesia, cut them, and sell corals, you know. So they just export raw material, which I think is not a very bright idea, you know, while we can produce the farm corals directly here. So we'll see what's going to happen. It also depends on the market. I mean, like 2 years ago, torches were obviously the very the cherry, you know, everybody was looking for torches. We'll see how the market's going to evolve, you know, what is going to request. You see, if they keep on requesting Millepora and Temis and all this, so yeah, I don't think there will be a problem for Indonesian farms. But if the demand changes, we need to check what's the demand's going to be. But I think the future, if they shut down the wild coral collection, you know, the future for mariculture and land farms in Indonesia is pretty bright, because even if they produce a lot of corals in the States or in Europe, they will still need some corals from here. And we are in the middle. We are close to Asia. We are not so far from the States and not so far from Europe. Yeah, so we should be fine. We should be fine if the freight cost doesn't go crazy again.
Yeah,
we should be
been
fine.
out of sight. What would you say is the percent that you know, is being contributed to the rest of the world in terms of the wild coral you know, exports from Indo? I mean, what do you have any idea in terms of what that percentage is?
I can get the data, you know, but I don't look at it. I try to just focus on what we're doing and not focus on what the other are doing. I guess it's a few 100,000 pieces of corals which are exported. I don't know how many exactly. You know, I would say like 500,000 pieces probably. You know, that should be around that. You know, that's quite many. You know, but the quota is going down and down and down and down every year. You know, until they stop it. You know, so they still, yeah. So there is less and less coral which are exported from Indonesia. That's for sure. You know, and Queensland is almost stopped. So yeah. We need to farm corals because the wild collection is getting harder and harder.
Yeah, you know, it's you know, just kind of common sense says that it's just going to be more and more of a challenge, you know, over time in terms of what you're facing in terms of, you know, the global warming and in terms of the bleaching events in other parts of the world, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting next couple of years, I assume, for you guys. But it sounds like you're trying to adapt with the inland farms.
Yeah, I mean, there is still a lot of things we can do. You know, we haven't explored the sexual reproduction. You know, that we should be doing. There is still, I think there's still a lot of options. You know, in the coral farming business. Right now, we focus mainly on replanting, on reef restoration work. So we create nurseries, ocean nurseries to produce coral for reef restoration. And replant corals. My target is to replant as many coral as I export. So yeah, there is a lot of activities, you know, that we can do. You know, the reefs are getting damaged all around the world, and they need to be fixed, and we know how to do it. So we can also participate in this. This is also for us. replanting, making sure the reefs around our nursery and around our coral farms, are healthy. It's also a way to protect our own nurseries. So we need to be doing that job. So I think the mariculture industry has a great future in Indonesia, because reefs are getting hammered every day. So at some point, people, when they will see reef disappearing, they will ask us to come and fix it and restore it as much as we can. We cannot save the reefs. I mean, in 50 years or 100 years, they will be gone anyway if we don't if we don't change our way of living. But we're just trying to delay the process until maybe there is a change in mentality.
I hear you. So, Jake, Reef Builders, man, thank you very much for that super chat. The comment is, make sure to smash that like button and post some questions to the Coral Master. And we've got a few questions in the queue here for you, Vincent. One more follow-up question for you, though. You mentioned in terms of restoring the coral reefs and whatnot. You're more involved these days, you told me before we did the live stream, in the reef restoration, correct? Than farming at this point in time?
So the idea is, when we created the regulation for coral mariculture, so we decided with the government that 10% of whatever we would produce would be replanted on the reefs. That was very nice. But the thing is, the coral that you need for reef restoration is not the coral that you produce for aquarium. It's completely different. Corals for aquariums must be colorful. It's only a few genus, very selected. While the corals that you need for reef restoration is resilient corals, brown corals. There is no way you can sell the coral that we grow for reef restoration for aquarium purposes. So it's completely different work, So and 15 years ago, we were lazy. We were just busy with trying to produce as many species as possible here, and we would give corals away to a different organization that we would plant them. And we realized that those guys didn't really know what they were doing, and they were not doing their job properly. So we decided, I think 6 or 7 years ago, to start doing it ourselves. So we have the know-how. We've been doing this for 20 years, so we know better than anybody else, how to plant corals underwater. So we start doing it, and this year I'm gonna hit the 25,000 corals pretty soon, and my target is now 30,000 coral before the end of the year.
Wow!
So we produce 50,000 corals for aquariums, and we are planting 30,000 corals back into the ocean.
That's awesome.
I think that the aquarium industry, we try to create a movement, within the aquarium industry, so the aquarium people take their responsibility. I mean, you cannot blame the aquarium industry, for all the reefs going down in the world, but they play a small role into that, so it's there is no denial, I mean, we have to assume, so if the whole aquarium industry, would put their things together and start to take their responsibilities and start to fix reef, more than they damage, that would be something. So that's the idea, so we try to get some few people involved. It was a little bit difficult, people didn't follow up on this, so we decided we're going to do this alone. We're going to do this. And it's taking momentum, so
That's
we
great.
are very happy with that.
That sounds like it's going in the right direction. So, all right, a question from Pepe de la Torre Navas. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Hello, Vincent. One question. Is there any book or website or resource to look where every coral species lives, water depth, water movement, and nutrition, and water quality? And I know Jake mentioned the Coral Finder 2022. What are some good resources there for IDing corals there, Vincent?
Well, I mean, there is one website which is managed by Veron, which is called Coral of the World. That's for art corals. Unfortunately, you need to understand the mindset of Mr. Veron, to be able to use it, So there are some information that can be used for aquarists, but not that many, yeah, there is not many. There is not a lot of information available online. Unfortunately, there should be a lot more, you know. But it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money to actually run a big website like that, you know, and maintain it and keep it up to date. Few people have tried it. So, for example, you know, regarding Acropora, there is three big. There is Veron, so everything is online, is available online. It's pretty good. So you just type corals of the world, and then you're gonna find this website. You type the genus of coral you're looking for, you type the species, then you're gonna have the description with few pictures of that species. That's pretty good. Uh, uh, but there is another school, you know, Carden Wallace did this book in the 90s that's called Staghorn Corals of the World. And they had this online, and they run out of money, and it's offline, unfortunately, right now, because they don't have enough money to maintain it. So yeah, it's expensive to actually keep this huge website online. It's a lot of maintenance and a lot of work every day to make sure it's up to date and to make sure there is no bug, no problem with it.
So
unfortunately, so the only available thing online is Coral of the World.
Gotcha. So Vincent, would you say that over the years you've collected, cultured, and shipped a lot of stony corals to the folks here in the United States, and the chances are that most of us here in the U.S. have a coral that is got lineage to the corals that you have collected? Would you say that's a true statement?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been, selling mariculture corals for 20 years, you know. So yeah, there is definitely a lot of coral that landed in the States, and that are probably still there.
So this is kind of a lead into a question from a viewer, Jacob Vigstrom. Question for Vincent: what's your all-time favorite coral? And then a follow-up question: what about your all-time favorite acro?
Okay, so I mean, for acros, I like to go and find the corals and observe the corals in the environment, you know. So one of the reasons I'm good at what I'm doing is because when we culture corals, we need to find the best way to actually grow coral in the ocean, but not exactly where in the place where it lives. So we need to understand what affects is its biology and the way it lives, so we can replicate this and find a similar place that is accessible for our staff, that is not too deep, that etc. etc. So I spend a lot of time observing corals underwater, you know. So obviously I'm very bored with tenuis and milleporas. I hate millies and I hate tenuis. I've been growing and selling them for 20 years. You know, I'm over them. So, unfortunately, what's gonna excite me underwater, I think, which is not very exciting for an aquarist point of view. You know, so it's often something which is either very deep or either rare and probably brown. So I was in North Sulawesi in July, and then there is two species of coral that I found for the first time. One is Acropora that was 40 meters at the bottom of Bunaken. So it's a brown coral, doesn't look like amazing, you know, you need to get close to it to see that it's different. And the other one was Acropora almaera that I've seen for the first time. It's very thin, deep water, brown, not very fancy corals. So yeah, if I had to go into what excites me, you know, it's this kind of things. After I like deep water acropora, you know, so like gold dragon, like this kind of things, speciosa. I like this kind of things more than shallow water acroporas.
Yeah, Jake Jake kind of asked a very fortuitous question. When are the smooth deep water corals going to be popular again? Well, it sounds like you're digging those, but they're not necessarily going to be the colorful ones that we've seen making their way through the trade here in the States?
It's hard to say, you know, because I mean, I didn't collect those and I didn't put them in aquariums. So you don't know what they're gonna become under blue lights. So
Right.
you never know. I mean, those corals are leaves 40 or 50 meters deep. You put them up into a LPS kind of style aquarium, you know, with not too strong blue light, and they're gonna develop pigments, and you could be surprised what they're gonna become. You know, I mean, that's what happened with deep water corals 15 years ago. You know, they were mostly brown, and then we put them in aquarium under blue light, and then we realized that those corals were becoming very, very, very colorful. You know, and they were a lot stronger than shallow water corals. So they got popular that way. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately I don't have a wild collection license, you know, so I cannot go and just take a sample, bring it up, and put it in aquarium and try it, you know. But we're working on it, you know, to get permits, you know, to go and collect some samples of those species and maybe start farming them and see if they become aquarium corals.
Did you collect the and I want to ask you about the name game here, but did you collect the Tyree Purple Monster? That was from Bali, wasn't it?
That's a common species that we get here, you know. So yeah, it's I certainly shipped a lot of them, and I farmed a lot of them. That's yeah. So yeah, this is what we call oxamai. Yes. So we made it popular, like I don't know, 18 years old. It's a beautiful coral. It's very colorful. Unfortunately, with the blue LEDs now, it doesn't look as good as it used to under HQI, the metal halide. So it's not as popular as it used to be, but it's still a beautiful coral. It's still a coral that I enjoy finding, and because it's not so common, it lives in. So when you find it, it makes this huge, like I don't know, 6 foot high, long branching colonies in very calm turbine lagoon. So it's a very particular environment. It's beautiful colonies.
I'm talking about. We might be talking about a different coral. The purple
Okay.
monster I'm talking about is like a kind of a deep, rich purple. It's got white polyps. It's got very thick branches, dense.
I'm not so good at, as you
Yeah,
can
the
see, I'm
name
not so
game.
good
It's the
with
whole
the
thing.
trade names. You
Yeah.
know, you have to give me Latin names, you know, and then I know.
Jake,
So maybe it's Gomezai.
Jake probably knows the name of that, the
Yeah, he would
scientific
know,
name
you
of
know,
it.
which one it is.
Jake, put it in the chat there if you know the. I'm sure you do, the Tyree Purple Monster, whatever that scientific name is. But all right, a couple more questions, Vincent. So Chris Rojas is wondering, how do you determine what the market requires? I guess in terms of the demand and type.
Yeah, that's complicated. It's always a bet. So basically, I mean, we try to look at what's becoming popular. Obviously, our customers. So they ask us, I need more of this, so we can feel the strand from us, you know. So they're asking, oh yeah, we need more torch, we need more torch, we need more torch. Right now, it's flower pots, it's goniopora are getting more popular, you know. So we need more goniopora. So we can feel. We also look at what is becoming popular on online, you know. So we look at all the pictures, what everything is, what everybody's crazy about. We look at builders. We write for Reef Builders. We try to have something new and different. You know, we try to showcase it on Reef Builder and see if it's picking up. But yeah, it takes it's a lot of efforts to actually, you know, always observe what's going on the market and what is popular and what is not.
So okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Jake corrected me. The purple monster is from the Solomon Islands, and it's an Acropora. I'm going to mispronounce this. Longicenthus?
Longicenthus.
Longicenthus, yeah.
Yeah, we produce something similar here, you know. So yeah, Longicenthus is actually a very nice coral. It's also it lives in the same environment, you know. So I wasn't too far off, you know. It lives in turbid lagoons, very calm and very protected turbid lagoons, and make those thick branches. it's a nice coral.
You mentioned goniopora flower pot corals and how they're becoming very popular. Why is it? I don't know if you can answer this question, but it just seems like they're so much easier now for aquarists to keep in their tanks versus years and years ago. Is it just is it something in a species coming out of the wild, or is it, or are we talking about?
No, I think it's mainly aquarium techniques. I mean, having ICP and people understand a lot better the chemistry of the aquariums, and there was a lot of poison in salt and products that we used to. I mean, Triton revolutionized our industry, when it comes to that, because all the products now, they know they're going to be under the microscope of ICP testing, so before any product is coming out of the water of the market, they make sure there is no pollution in them, there is nothing that's going to hurt the corals, and it's going to be better, So I think ICP, in a way, revolutionized the chemistry of our aquariums, and the quality of the products that we get now is much better than what we used to.
Yeah, Chris.
So I think the main problem with goniopora was pollution, so pollution of different heavy metals, and that's the main difference.
Yeah, Chris from ACI is saying minor and traces certainly, I guess, are helping with gonies.
Yeah.
He has a question though. How many different colors of gonies do you currently farm, would you say?
It's hard to say, It's hard to keep up, So I would say at least 50 different varieties of gonioporas.
Wow.
And we're trying to produce more and more and more and more, because they actually do very well in aquarium. So they actually grow very well in land farm. They grow well in ocean farms, but they grow even better in land farms. So it's I would say Blastomussa, Goniopora, Chalias, Echinophilia are probably and all the favids are probably the four main coral that we grow in land farms. But yeah, they do very well. You can cut them small if you disinfect the water, if you disinfect the soil properly, and you have very good result, very small mortality, and they grow pretty fast if you feed them well.
Yeah, I the last few years I've had some goniopora and alveopora frags that have just blossomed into big colonies, and I've, for the first time the last couple of years, been fragging those myself, and just I'm amazed at how resilient those corals are. You could just kind of like frag them up, and then like 2 weeks later they're like, shooting out the
and the thing with goniopora is that even a small half-inch frag, when the polyps are totally expanded, it's like big enough, to take a little bit of space in aquarium and to be visible. So it's a good coral to actually farm, because even though the skeleton is pretty small, with extended polyp, it takes enough space for people to enjoy it.
So Chris's wife Amanda's got
and it's very colorful. It's perfect.
Oh yeah,
it's perfect aquarium.
I'm an SPS nut, and people always seem to get drawn to my gonioporas and alveoporas. I'm like, come on, look at the sticks. They like the motion,
Me too. Same as you. Yeah. Motion is important.
Yeah. So Amanda Meckley has a question. What species are the most challenging for Vincent to farm?
Echinophilia is a pain in the ass.
Echinophilia
is difficult because it grows. Yeah, chalices. The Echinophilia, because they grow so slow. We still haven't found what we need to tweak. So they grow a lot faster. So yeah, it's a problem. I wish we could grow Echinophilia a lot faster than we are doing right now. So it's just a very slow metabolism coral. It's just the way I say it. That's why Acropora or Goniopora, you get quick result. So it's very interesting. But Echinophilia, you need to forget them. In one corner for 6 months, And then after 6 months, you go there, wow. But if you go and look at them every day, say, it's not growing. It's not growing. It's not growing. What is wrong with this coral? It's not growing. It's not growing. So yeah, it's not a very satisfying coral.
So earlier in the conversation, you mentioned about aquapora and coloration, and a lot of aquarists want to see very colorful acros. But you're basically saying that you're more intrigued these days with the shapes of acros versus colors. Can you get a little bit more detail in that thinking of yours?
Okay, it's not totally true, but yeah. So you have corals in the ocean and you have corals in aquarium. This is two separate things. So you need to look at corals in the ocean and try to see if you can find a potential for them in aquariums. So I take a lot of acros from the ocean farms and put them under LEDs in our farm and see if they start to develop colors that they don't develop in the ocean. So at the moment we have one coral, that I think could be the next tenuis. I'm not sure about the species. I thought it was Acropora donei, but it's actually a different species. It was mainly brown on our farms, and then I could see there was a hint of pink, and so I put them under blue LEDs, and then the pink started to develop, and it got bright pink. And then when we frag them, where they start growing, they develop some green pigments. So it kind of have a blue axial corallite and radial corallite with a pink color tissue in the middle, and then where it's growing, there is a kind of green edge. So I think it has a very good potential for aquarium. So we're trying to multiply them, and it could become popular. That's the way it works, So it's just trial and error. You see a potential for corals, you take it, you put it under blue LEDs, and then up for the best, and develop something. When you eat something, then you try to multiply this by hundreds, so you have stock to sell.
What? So that's it's a rainbow tenuis you're talking about?
I don't think so. It's not a tenuis. It's not a millepora, but it's something pretty similar. It's a shallow water corambos, so same shape. I'm not sure about the species. I haven't found the exact species. I have many pictures of it in the wild, but it takes. I mean, sometimes to put a name on one coral, it takes years.
What do you think about the coral name game and the marketing that's going on around the names and it just kind of creates a fever pitch among hobbyists, and the prices for some of these corals are like just unbelievable, and it's all driven by marketing. How do you feel by that? I mean, essentially you're collecting stuff and then you're putting it into the pipeline, and then it's kind of taking on a life of its own.
It's pros and cons. I mean, it's like it's good for the market, because you get people entertained, and you get people, to want more corals, and it makes some corals popular, So in a way, it's kind of it make the market animated,
Yep.
And so it's people enjoy that, they want changing things, they want different things, So the funny thing is that there is this whole game, but actually the corals are still the same, they don't evolve much, So that's funny, because you have thousand and thousand and thousand and name, but it's still the same corals.
Yeah.
It's still tenuis and still millis, I mean, it's still the same coral, It's just you can put different names, on it, It's still the same corals, So that's the funny part. I mean, it's like it's just marketing, So I'm not too keen on it, because I'm specific names, and I'm European, So we like Latin names in Europe, while in the States, they're not like common names, So it's a different thing, But the US is actually influencing Europe regarding this, So they start to get the names, But at the end of the day, when you have one corals and you have 100 different names for the same corals, it's just confusing for everyone, So it's, yeah, I don't think it's a good thing, At the end of the day, it's just make the market very, very, very confusing, and yeah, tenuis, I understand there is some special strains of tenuis and everything, there is some which it's going to develop a little bit different coloration, you know, but it's still a tenuis. So, yeah, it's sometimes I think it's too much.
So here's another question about smooth skin acros from NSB Reefs. ReefBum, can you ask what is the typical water conditions they're growing their smooth skin acros in? So what kind of conditions are those smooth skins usually in there, Vincent?
Okay, so I mean, so the top of the farm is 15 meters deep, which is 45 feet deep, all the way to 30 meters, which is 90 feet, you know. So the farm is in between 45 to 90 feet. So that's pretty deep. This is the place where maximum you're gonna have 5 meters, 15 feet visibility, you know. If you have 15 feet visibility, it's considered good. Most of the time it's going to be not even 10 feet. So when you are on the surface, you go down. It takes halfway, you know, to go down to start to see the shape of the rocks and start to see that you're going to eat something, you know. So it's the water is very, very rich in particles. So the light is obviously very low. So that's why, I mean, I just light my deep water the same way as light my LPS. So I put them in the same condition as I put gonioporas or things like that. So yeah, just low light, like a power of 100, 150. It's more than enough. They don't need so much light. They're not good at competing with other corals, you know. So it's not good to put them in a place where there is many other corals. And it's nice to make to keep them all together, at the same time, all the deep water together, because they protect each other, and often in the wild they live together, you know. It's kind of the trees that protect the forest, you know. So if one fall down, all the other one fall down. So usually when you find them, you find big fields of them. It's seldom to find one colony of them. You know? It's just large, wide field of them, you know. So yeah. They're not very aggressive, you know, so they just don't sting each other the same way the shallow water do. It's not as competitive, you know. So I just put them together, you know. It's in 100 par light, not so much flow. I don't feed them, but you could feed them, you know, with some phytoplankton, and mainly phytoplankton, not zooplankton.
What about what about parasites in the wild? You know, like in our closed ecosystems, you know, in terms of our reef tanks, you know, with SPS, you're fighting acro-eating flatworms. You got some parasitic copepods out there, you know, and there's a whole bunch of pests that can impact the health of the corals in our tanks. What degree are you fighting that in the wild?
We just quarantine everything. So we just, I mean, in the wild, we cannot do anything, you know, but you have to understand, you know, that the wild ecosystem, especially around the farms, we are lucky to have a lot of fish. We stop people from fishing around our farms because, first of all, they often walk on the rocks, or they get hooked on the rocks and they damage everything. So we stop them from fishing, and we have all the fish, all the predators of those parasites around the farms, you know. So we don't have problems of parasites on the ocean farms. It's just I've never seen one racks completely. So the racks are designed so Drupella snail cannot climb on them. So chronopton starfish cannot climb on them. They would be a problem, you know. But I never had a farm, you know, with a red bug infestation, you know. So which would cause problem, or which would show signs.
Right.
You know, with predators.
I'm sorry, you cut out there.
For the ocean farms. Oh, sorry. So we don't have much problem in the ocean farms, you know, because there is all the predators, you know. But for the land farm, we quarantine all the corals. We give them antibiotic treatments, and we keep a lot of fish in our systems, you know. So to make sure we have enough wrasse, enough mandarin fish, enough pipefish, enough springerite damselfish, etc., etc. There is this whole list of fish, you know, that we need to keep in our system to make sure they hit all those bugs.
So this is an interesting question from Chris Rojas. What is a day in the life like for you and your team?
Can you repeat that?
He's asking what a day in the life would be like for you and your team. So I guess what would a typical day look like for you guys? Gals too.
So yeah, so we work in the morning, so usually, when we get to the farms, it's early in the morning. So usually wake up by 4, by 5. By sunrise, you are in the ocean, so by 6:30 you are in the ocean, and then usually you work 2, 3, 4 hours maximum, because that's all you can get underwater. And then so there's usually a lot of driving around involved, a lot of boat involved, so we have farms which are an hour away driving, and we have farms which are 3 hours away driving. It depends on which farm we're going. But yeah, it's so transportation to the farms, 2 dives, 2 1-hour dive, 2 times an hour dive with 1 hour in between, so usually where you go down, you pick up a broodstock colony, you cut broodstock colony, then you go up, you work on the boat, fragmenting and gluing and doing everything needs to be done. We try to work as much as possible underwater, because as soon as you take the corals out of water, you stress it a little bit. So I favor gluing corals underwater. So there is less recovery time, and so they grow faster, and yeah, it's just less recovery time, So I favor to actually do everything underwater. So that's usually there's few people. I have 2 staff that I like to work with, because we cannot talk underwater, So they need to. There is a non-verbal communication that's going on underwater, and then there is some people, with this communication is very easy, and some people, it just never happens. So I have my favorite staff, and then we go down and just try to work as fast as possible underwater. So usually, we spend our mornings in the ocean, and then after I have other people that are taking care of the land farm, which they are testing water every day. We test alkalinity, calcium, magnesium every day. So I get the result on my phone wherever I am in the world. I get the result of my system on my phone every day, and check that. And I just need to go and spend an hour in the land farm, and tell them what to do.
For the you mentioned some parameters there for the some key parameters for the land farm. Are you guys pretty much shooting for natural seawater levels for those key parameters?
So in the land farm, we use the Triton method for one very simple reason, is because where we are located, not so far from the airport in Bali, the water is not so good all year long. So we had some issues for years and years, especially during the rain, from December to May. That would be our big problem, which is the high season for our business, with big fluctuation in water quality due to heavy rains. So we decided it might look counterproductive, but actually, here it's the only way to go, because during the rainy season we get so much rain that it's very difficult to keep just the salinity.
Right.
It's just sometimes we struggle with salinity, So every time we pump water, we need to check the salinity. We need to check, and that was a problem. So now we work with the Triton method. We don't make any water change. I mean, we change some water. The water that we use to pack the corals, that's our water change, and that's all. And any water. So yeah, it might seem counterproductive being here and just next to the ocean, just to pump water in and out, but the secret is stability, So we find we get a lot more, much better result, not pumping in bad water and different parameter water, or not pumping in parasites to have a perfectly closed system. Now the technology is available, for you to keep a perfectly closed system, and it's actually the way to get the best results.
What about coral feeding? I mean, obviously corals need to get food. As aquarists, what can we do to really try to feed the corals to our best of our ability? Should we be dosing amino acids? Should we be doing some specific coral foods, or is feeding the fish good enough with fish poop?
So yeah, we have our own recipe of amino acids, that we use to feed corals with. We use Reef from Polyplab. We use different coral food, but yeah, the two main thing that we use is our own recipe of amino acids that we feed coral with, and Reefroids. So yeah, so every 2 days we feed the corals. So they're getting fed 3 or 4 times a week.
What about dosing bacteria? That's kind of been a hot thing around here in the States, and I'm not sure about in Europe, but a lot of folks believe that dosing bacteria is beneficial to a captive reef tank. Do you think that's necessary? I mean, corals do eat.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. Unfortunately, it's difficult for me because I don't have any available here. So I never tried it. Really, I never started any system, with any bacteria because we have live rock, so it's easy for us, to actually start systems with live rocks. I never tried using bacteria, but it's possible, I mean, when I think that corals feed a lot more than we think. I think that, and I just read an article in Coral Magazine a couple of days ago, about zooplankton, and yeah, there was big misconception of the quantity of zooplankton available on reefs around the world, So everybody say that reefs are desert, there is no food on reefs and everything. So yeah, it might be the food is really quickly recycled, but trust me, there is a lot of food available on the reef. And especially where our coral come from, So if you go on the Great Barrier Reef, on outer reefs, in very clear, crystal clear gin water, the water is pretty clean, but the inshore reefs where our corals are collected, where our corals are grown, trust me, there is a lot of food. So 90% of their need coming from the zooxanthellae, it's bullshit. They need food, so they can adapt, they can survive without food, definitely. A lot of acropora do. But if you want to grow them and faster, and if you want to reproduce them, you need to feed them to have good results.
What about nutrients? What do you guys in your land farms keep your nitrates and phosphates at?
0.03 for phosphate and 2 to 5 nitrates.
So not super low,
Very
but
simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, for everything, for acroporas, LPS, we don't have any special treatment, for any corals. We try to stay everything standardized everywhere the same. We used to have different systems for different things. So it's just make it complicated. So now we just 2 to 5 nitrates and 0.03 for phosphates. And yeah, it's not difficult to keep those parameters. I mean, I don't think it's difficult.
Now, as a coral farmer, do you try to keep an elevated pH? Is that something that you guys try to strive for?
Of course, we do. I mean, in our farming system, we use Core 7, the Triton product, which already has elevated pH, and that's good enough, If you use the Triton method, you have a 10 times turnover. So if you have enough flow plus Core 7, it just keeps the pH higher, Maybe I could be a little bit higher, 8.4, 8.5. Yeah, I don't know. It's big system. It's commercial system. I don't want to run it. You fine tune. It's better to find something. Which our pH is 8.2 to 8.3, and it seems to be good enough. I could probably benefit to have it a little bit higher, but it would complicate things a lot, and I don't want to get there. I don't want to make a mistake, So the risk is high, and there is too much at stake. I mean, I don't want to come one morning and there is a problem with the dosing pump, and then everything's dead. I don't want this to happen.
Yeah, I hear you. It is kind of a fine line there, and I know Chris at ACI
Yes.
has a whole system in place to keep that high pH from that pH from going.
Chris is there every day, Chris is there
Yeah.
every day. He's taking care of it by himself and everything, so it's good, Unfortunately, me, I rely on other people, so I cannot ask them, to work as good as Chris would do or I would do, So I need to make to set up a system, that is staff reliant, and staff proof, so mistake proof. So I rather have a not optimized, completely optimized system, that works well without any risk, than to have a slightly better system, but taking a lot more risk.
I hear you. So when you pull a piece off of the reef and you bring it to the land farm, let's say, or maybe it's in the ocean farm, what kind of time frame are we talking about in terms of getting that coral ready for market, so to speak, in terms of being able to farm it to a certain size and then being able to frag it? Is that like a 1-year process? Is that a 2-year process? It depends on the coral.
It depends on the species,
Yeah.
For an acropora, yeah, it's a 1-year process until you start to get stock fragment for sale, So you just start. You don't have large quantity, So it's all depend on the quantity you're looking for, also, So if you want to gather enough stock before you can actually market it, then yeah, for an acropora, 2 years is a good timing, is a good frame. Then you have a few hundreds ready that you can sell, and then you can keep on producing those 300s. If you just need 10, 20 pieces, within 1 year, it can be done. For LPS, it's a whole different problems,
Right.
It takes 4 or 5 years, before you build a broodstock. So yeah, it's complicated work. It's complicated paperwork. It's very, very challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be so many different variables in play. So Jake's got a good question. Have you discovered any new coral species recently, let's say?
Well, I mean, there are some acroporas we just don't know what it is. Is it a new species? I don't know yet. So I did a survey with Paul Muir, with Dr. Paul Muir, which was the assistant of Carden Wallace in Townsville Museum 2 months ago in North Sulawesi. So basically, the story goes in 1993 there and did a survey of some dive sites and recorded all the species of acropora she met. And at that time, I think she found 3 new species of acropora. And so we went back 30 years later, and we dove the same spots as she dove. And we recorded all the different species that we found, and we're writing the result right now. We found, I think there is only 2 species that she found that we didn't find, but there is 1 species. Oh no! So there is 2 species that she found we didn't find, but there is 2 species that she didn't find and that we found. So Tenella and Almaera, because she didn't go as deep as we did. And there is 1 acropora that we found in 1 site that she didn't dive. That might be a new species, but we're still checking this. It's complicated for acropora. It's very, very complicated. Because you have, maybe some people will call it one name, some people another name, but you have to check both. You have to check all the museums around the world to see if they are specimen of something similar or not. It's a very complicated and long process. Maybe DNA testing, will not make this more simple, but
Yeah.
more straightforward for sure.
So TFP has a
So
question.
yeah, and with Jake, I want to add something. With Jake, actually, I don't know, like 10 years ago, we did an expedition in Komodo, and we have 2 species of acropora there that we still don't know and don't think they have been either recorded. So we think we have 2 new species of acropora also there.
Jake's asking, where's Chalias?
I don't know. I don't know. I have to find a nice one, you know. That's the thing, you know. I'm very picky, you know. So I don't want a common thing, you know. I want something very, very different. So still looking for it. Still looking for it.
Taking your
Working
time on
it.
that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, TFP has a question. I was going to ask this question myself, and I'll expand on this person's questions. Do you ever experience RTN? What us hobbyists get here in our tanks? But yeah, I was going to ask you RTN, STN, if you guys do experience that, and if you do, what do you folks do to try to stop it?
Okay, so RTN, not really. One of the reasons is because temperature here is pretty much the same all year long, you know. So temperature in Indonesia, we under the tropics, is very similar all year long. So we don't have big fluctuation like you have in the States, you know, like during spring, you know, the temperature of your tank is going to go up, and the quality of your hair that you put into your tank is very different. Here it's pretty much stable, you know, all year long, you know. So I touch wood, I never experienced, you know, RTN, you know. We lose one piece, you know, here and there, you know, sometime, you know, but it never spreads to all the other ones. And usually when it happens is it's a mistake that we did transporting or cutting, or it's a manipulation. It's just a handling problem. STN, so we have some time, you know, especially with Acropora, you know, it takes Acropora sometimes, especially deep water, takes a long time to actually adapt to certain conditions, to new conditions. So we are lucky here because we get the corals from the farm, and within 5 hours is going to be in our system. But when those corals are shipped out, it takes 48 hours for them to reach their destination, and then they're going to stay 24 hours or 48 hours in one wholesaler tank, and they're going to be shipped again, you know, for 24 hours to a retailer tank, and it's going to stay 24 48 hours there, and then it's going to be moved to another tank, you know. So it's like 3 big water quality differences, you know, in the set of a week, you know. So it's a lot of stress for coral.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like they are dying off slowly, you know, but it's actually just, yeah, they're just waiting. They go in a mode, you know, in a survival mode, you know. So they say, okay, there is so many variation in our environment right now, you know, so I'm going to wait until everything becomes stable, you know. So it takes them like 6 months. For 6 months, you see them, they become brown, they don't grow, they just, and then after 6 months, they start to have a little bit of coloration, you know, and they start growing again, you know. But during those 6 months recession, you know, they actually lose some. This is something you could call, you know, slow tissue necrosis, you know, or something like that, you know. But we're lucky, you know. I don't know why, you know, we don't experience, you know, RTN if we don't make a handling mistake, you know. If we bring back corals from one of our ocean farms and the staff forget to put ice in the boxes, yeah, they're gonna die. It happens. It happens usually once. But yeah, once you know how to deal with this and you make sure you have a very stable system, usually it's not something that is very common. You know, the theory, we don't play with carbon dosing or with this kind of things in our system. You know, so we have very, very simple method. You know, this is I try to, yeah, stability is the main thing, you know. So I try to make a system that my staff cannot damage, you know, cannot make errors with, you know. So very, very, very bulletproof, very, very strong. And once you reach that, you don't have any problems.
You mentioned
it's all about stability.
Gotcha. You mentioned shipping corals and some of the long journeys that these corals take from you guys to all the different countries that you export corals to. When shipping, best practices, oxygen, activated carbon, are those things that you utilize?
Well, We tried so many different things over. I mean, I've been shipping corals for 30 years now, you know. So trust me, you know, we tried a lot of things. To be honest with you, right now we try to keep it simple, you know. So obviously, you know, we have a system with very good water quality. You know, we try to keep the alkalinity a little bit higher in our shipping systems, so the water is slightly buffered. We try to keep the temperature as so we sometimes use. I think, you know, the main problem, especially with Acropora, is temperature. You know,
Yeah.
so we often use temperature recorders in our boxes to make sure, you know, that there is no problem, especially in new places where we haven't shipped before. Shipping is very, very, very technical, you know, because depending on the length, depending on the itinerary, depending on the season, you're gonna change a few things, you know. So like during COVID, the airport in Bali was shut down, so we had 12 hours more flight. And we would ship to Jakarta. In Jakarta, it's warm, so we would have to put more ice, for example. You know, so it's a longer flight, so we have to put more water, more oxygen, and because it has a stopover in a warm place, we need to put more ice. If it has a stopover in a cold place, we have to put less ice, and sometimes we have to use heat packs. So it really, every shipment is different. Every packing is different. So we have 4 or 5 different standards depending on the season, depending on the destination. We always check temperature at destination to make sure we arrive and it's not too warm or not too cold. And there is some season. Luckily, July, August, when it's very warm over there, you know, we don't ship too much, so it's a low season, you know,
Yeah.
so there is not too many problems. But during winter, sometimes we lose. Last year, we lost some shipment in Istanbul because of snowstorm. You know, just the shipment got stuck in a snowstorm. The flight couldn't take off, and the shipment stayed there 3, 4, 5 days. And yeah, you can say bye bye to all the calls.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very, very challenging, you know, because every shipment is actually different.
Do you guys utilize activated carbon in case you know, to help absorb any toxins in the bag if the corals start getting stressed?
Yes, we do. We do on longer shipments. But when the shipment is fine, you don't really need it. We use it on some fish. We use it on some shrimps. We use it on some corals, but not all corals. Because also so you need to use pellets, not small carbon, because otherwise it floats and start to irritate the corals. So you need something that is heavy enough to sink and stay at the bottom of the bag. Yeah, so that's what we use, you know, pelleted active carbon. So it's a bit challenging to find the right one, to find the good one that has no phosphates and it's not gonna release anything. You don't want something too strong neither. You don't want it to absorb everything that is inside the water neither. So yeah, it's a difficult process. So don't put too much, just put a little bit and make sure it's a very high quality active carbon.
Yeah, it sounds like you know, I do a lot of shipping myself here in the United States, and it is definitely a bit of a science, and it does seem to be that temperature is the biggest factor, though, in terms of success failure.
That's the thing. Especially Acropora. Acropora will lose color. So if the customer tell you, oh yeah, they arrived, they are alive, you know, but they are not so colorful. So you know they had a temperature stress somewhere. That's what it is, and people don't understand that, you know. I mean, it's like the first reaction of corals, of especially Acropora, you know, when it comes to temperature, it's color loss. So they're not vibrant enough, you know. So when you get it right, so for especially for Acropora, low temperature is better than high temperature. So it's definitely better to have them cooler than warmer.
I've heard that SPS can actually handle low temperatures into the mid 50s. I don't know if that's something that you would agree with or not, but I've heard it can go that low in a bag.
Yeah. When they send me reports and I can see, you know, the temperature is low. I know the Acropora will be fine. Lower temperature, more oxygen, less bacterial activity. It's all good for Acropora. You know, they actually. I mean, where am I? So I would have to Google it, how much is it in Fahrenheit, but where am I? We get temperature as low as 18, 20 degrees, in some places, and on the Great Barrier Reef, they get temperature also as low as that, so coral are used to lower temperatures. They just don't like high temperatures.
Gotcha. Rob.
And the funny thing is different with fish, because if you get fish cold, they hate it. But if you get fish warm, they're okay, So that's fish and coral is the opposite.
So I guess you don't want to have fish and coral in the same shipment. Then that could potentially be a little bit more complicated, maybe.
Not in the same box.
Not in the same box. Rob, upstate New
not
York.
in the same box. Yeah.
Rob, upstate New York, thank you very much, man, for that super
Sorry?
chat. I'm just thanking Rob here. Gave us a little super chat donation comments. Thanks again for a great chat. Appreciate that, Rob. Bert Minshew's got a question for you. We're getting back into the coral specific questions here. Do you farm any speciosa, and your thoughts on this acro?
Yes, I do. It's another one. It's like I don't think it likes shipping too much. It's not an easy one to ship. For us, we don't have too many problem with it. I think the main mistake do with them is that they put them under too much light. So it's actually a coral that needs to be kept in pretty dark system. Especially once it's healthy and growing and everything, you can try to slightly, very slowly, increase the light. But yeah, it's if you just give him indirect light, at the beginning, it's actually it doesn't really matter. It survives better. We culture it in 90 feet, so it's
wow.
It's pretty deep.
Yeah,
it's pretty deep. Very calm water. So yeah.
That leads.
But I've seen it in the wild in like 45 feet and perfectly healthy. So it just takes time to adapt properly. But yeah, especially small frags needs to be kept in a little bit in the dark. Where you keep your LPS, but not too close to your LPS. Because otherwise it gets stung.
What about security? Rob upstate New York asked a good question here. Vincent, any trouble with stealing corals from the ocean farms? Or do you guys ever have issues with people kind of pirating corals?
There are some. There is, but not so much, because everywhere we have ocean farms, we work with community. So if people would be stealing corals from there, they would be stealing from the community. Which is very risky in Indonesia. So it's we don't. There is only one place where we actually own the land, and then we are allowed to farm in front of the land. But most of the other places, we work with a cooperative of fishermen. So it belongs to the fishermen community, the farm. So they give us 2-3 fishermen to actually take care of the farms. And when we buy the corals back from them, the profit goes to the community. So if they would be stealing, they would be stealing from the community, So I don't say it doesn't happen. It happens, but not in large quantity, Usually people will take a couple pieces of them to grow a mother colony or something, but we never have huge theft, because we always have people, on the beach there is always some eyes on the beach, and checking out. In one place we had to put a floating platform and have to have people to actually sleep on them, especially when the gold torch rush was was at full power, full steam. So we put floating platforms where we keep the gold torch and have people watching 24/7 on them.
Wow!
But that's the only case where we did it. It's all. That's why I hate gold torch.
Yeah,
gold torch are only problems.
Well, I guess it's like those higher priced corals attract attention there, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
So Vincent, we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon, man. But talk to me about one last question for you. Talk to me about educating folks in the community. You mentioned the community and all that stuff, and we also talked that a big part of your tasks these days are coral restoration. But what kind of education do you do in terms of the community and fishermen and other folks out there in Indonesia?
Well, I mean, everywhere you start to farm corals, you need to educate people, you know. For reef restoration work or for farming, when we get in there, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. You got you're going to work, you know. I'm like,
Yeah, it's early morning, you know, so I start to get messages. Sorry. Yeah. So in order to run a farm or reef restoration project, you need to know what you're talking about, you know. So we have a coral reef ecology and coral reef identification course that I have it in local languages. I have it in English, in French, and everything. So everybody that wants to learn about corals, you know, we give them the course. But yeah, we go there, we give them a course on the coral reef ecology, what are corals, hard corals, soft corals, or to identify some few genuses of hard corals, and then the different techniques. That's a basic course. And after slowly we develop techniques, and we develop species, you know, for the different farms, you know. So it takes a bit of time. Slowly we teach the people, you know, how to work. It's a long process, you know, but yeah. So we have staff. So first of all, we go there, we teach them everything, and then after we have staff that maintain the farm properly with some of the local community, and then slowly they teach the local community, you know, the work that they have to do. And yeah, so it's the way it works. We do a lot of community trainings. Sometimes it's you go there, you give a training for 3 days, and then you start the farm 6 months later, and then you go back there 6 months later, you see the result, you maintain the farm with the staff, you show them what they have to do, and then 6 months later you go back there, and then you start making sure there is broodstock and counting and everything is done properly. So it's a few-year process.
gotcha.
It takes time to get all the licenses also,
Yeah.
you know, in each farm, you know. So by the time you plant the first corals, and by the time you can actually, you know, harvest one coral and sell it or plant it, it's always a 2-3 years process, you know. So you have a 2-3 years window, you know, where you can actually slowly, you know, teach the community, you know, all they need to know.
Gotcha.
Now I have farms, you know, like I train. What I do now is I use a community that I trained before to actually train other communities.
Oh.
So I train them. I go there. I still do the first training myself, the first ecology and ID training myself. And then after, when they need to do the work, we send people that already know the work to teach. And especially Indonesian are very social person, you know. So they always welcome. They are easy to deal with. It works pretty well here. That's the best way, you know. So you training trainers.
Yeah, that's a smart move. That way you can kind of be a lot more efficient in terms of your time, for sure. Zubin, thank you very much for that super chat. Appreciate it. Vincent, any final thoughts before we wrap it up today?
I don't know. I mean, I'm still passionate about coral. You know, I hope we can transmit this passion, you know, to most of the hobbyists. I just wish, you know, I mean, we have especially with Jake, we have a love for some weird corals. You know, we hope that we wish the hobby, you know, could be different than trying to copy the neighbor, you know, and just having the same tank as the neighbor. You know, we wish there would be people with more different corals and with more different aquariums. And there is so many corals that maybe are not as colorful, you know, very beautiful, you know, and people have to develop, you know, this love for corals, which are special, you know, in their own way, you know, and try to see, you know, what is the special things about those brown ugly corals. And yeah, so yeah, that I just hope, you know, the hobby would develop a little bit like the freshwater, so where people will keep only Amazonian fish or African fish or whatever, or Melanotenia or rainbow fish or more specialized, and some aquariums where people focus on one particular habitat or one particular genus or one particular shape of corals or etc., and or trying to keep all the fish that live with the corals and try to keep a small microcosm.
Yeah, you don't see any like
I like to inspire people, with this.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna say you don't see too many like staghorn only reef tanks out there, or reef tanks that are just with tabling acros. I mean, maybe you see that, but these days you don't see a lot of staghorn only or staghorn dominant tanks, which are gorgeous. I think
it will come back. It will come back. I think. Whatever people say, I think Acropora will still be the most popular corals in this hobby, because they are fascinating, and colorful and diverse, and they have so many good qualities, for the aquarium, So yeah, I mean, doing a table Acropora dominated tank, would be fantastic. And I think the technology start to be there, so it will come eventually.
Yeah, for sure. So. All right, man. Well, listen, I know you got to get to work, but I just want to really thank Vincent very much for being on the live stream tonight here in the U.S. And I also want to thank both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine for sponsoring this live stream. And I also want to thank all of you folks that tuned in to watch and appreciate the super chats. And finally, a big thank you to Paul, the moderator. Also want to let you know that all episodes of Rappin With ReefBum are available as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon. My next Rappin With ReefBum live stream will be next Thursday, September 8th, with Barnett Schutman. Barnett runs RVS Fish World, and he's responsible for importing most Filipino, Red Sea, and all Madagascar and Papua New Guinea fish, so it should be another great episode. I also like to mention that I will be having a live coral sale this Saturday, September 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on YouTube, so you can learn more about it on reefbum.com. And if you want to get the full upcoming schedule of guests for Rappin With ReefBum, please visit reefbum.com under the YouTube section. So until next time, be safe, be well. Later.
You take care. Thank you, guys.